Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdina as-siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladzina an'amta alayhim. Ghayril maghdubi alayhim waladdallin. Amin. Allahumma arina al-haqqa haqqan warzuqna ittiba'ahu wa arina al-batila batilan warzuqna ijtinabah. اللهم سلمنا من الشيطان الرجيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي امري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي صلى الله تعالى على خير خلقه محمد وآله وصحبه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. So today's topic inshallah is raising responsible children. Subtopic practical parenting. We only have about an hour and a half. Disha is at 7:30?
Yes.
Okay. So inshallah we'll try to finish by Isha. Now I was wondering, I find that these talks or seminars or workshops are more effective if they're interactive. If you share with me your thoughts and ideas, and if you have any questions, then I can at the same time keep answering your questions as well, rather than keeping it at the end for 10 minutes, which we might not have, and then you have to sort of say, well, I wanted to ask this, but I couldn't. Is that okay?
Yes.
So we'll cover as much as we can. What I'm going to do is I'm going to first share with us, like I always do from previous time, you would notice. I would share with you some guidance that Allah and His Prophet ﷺ provide us on the topic before moving on. A'udhu billahi minash shaitan rajim. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Tahrim, verse number 6, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu qu anfusakum wa ahlikum nara. Hadith from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, ala kullukum ra'i wa kullukum mas'ulun an ra'iyatihi. Another hadith from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allamu awladakum wa ahlikum al-khair wa addabuhum. Ma nahnu walidun waladahu afdala man adaba hasanan. There's no gift a father can give his son more precious than the gift of good manners. He is not from among us who does not have mercy on our young and respect our elders, commands good deeds, and stops from wrongdoing. And one more hadith, Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu said, submit yourself to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and do not disobey Him. Teach your children to obey the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to stay away from the forbidden things. This is the only way of protecting yourself and them from hellfire. I'm going to come to what we learn from this in a minute. What is in your mind as parents? What is the main objective that you have in raising your children? Share with me your thoughts. Be yourself, there's no right or wrong answers. I just want to pick your brain to find out what is important for you.
Be a good Muslim.
Be a good Muslim. Okay. What else? Anything else?
I find the most difficult when we give them advice that they keep asking why I should do this, why I should do that.
Of course.
Yeah, and a lot of time you don't have answer.
Of course. What is the main objective a parent has in raising his children?
Character.
Character. Okay. Anybody else?
Deen. Deen.
Deen, of course. Sisters, you can speak up as well. If you speak up loud, I can hear you. Anybody else? Okay. I'm going to give you a brief objective that I have in mind. The main objective of raising responsible children is to educate and to guide them to grow up to be pious, obedient, and good-fearing servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, well-mannered and successful in the worldly life as well as the life hereafter. You see the balance in there? So it's not just the deen that we are worrying about. We are worrying about their deen and dunya together. And that's the hardest part. That's where we have the most difficulty as to how we balance it. Some people go this way all the way, some people go that way all the way. Now, in summary then, here are some of the main parents' responsibilities in raising their children. Like we heard, teaching, training, and guiding and role modeling to be a good Muslim and obedient servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Role modeling is the most important thing than teaching and training. Because if you're teaching one thing and you are giving them all the advices and lectures about how to behave, but that doesn't show in your behavior at home, you just counteract everything that you taught them. And that is one of the major problems in our homes. It is not that we are always there to give them good advice and give them good nasiha, and lecture them all the time, but our actions don't translate what we teach them. That's the most difficult part. Number 2, educating them in the matters of deen so that they can live their life and conduct themselves according to the commands of Allah and the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is not going to happen. Like the brother said, they ask questions and we don't know how to answer. That is also a very difficult thing to do, these days especially. Because we are not focusing on teaching them their deen and the beliefs of their deen in a way that would make sense to them. We're just teaching them the traditions of the deen, the customs of the deen, the fiqh of implementing and living the deen. And we just stop there. And like the brother said, every time you ask even the smallest of the kids, do this is wrong, why? Pray on time, why do I have to do it right now? There's why before everything you say. And parents, like the brother says, don't know how to answer it. So when I say educating them, most fundamental thing which is necessary is educating yourselves. If as moms and dads, you have not educated yourself as to why are you living some rituals of the deen, except that it is Allah's commands and we do it. This answer would be perfect if we lived actually according to Islam, when the shan of the Muslim, the virtue of the Muslim was sami'na wa ata'na. Am I right? Sami'na wa ata'na was the ultimate virtue of a Muslim. But we don't live in those times. We see sami'na and then we say, but I have some questions. But it has to make sense to me. That part, nobody has taught us. And we are still not teaching it. It is my biggest beef about teaching deen to our children and ourselves, is that we still are basically sticking to the fundamentals, the beliefs, the fiqh of how to implement it, and some sunnahs, but we don't teach them why are we supposed to do this. And it seems then to the kids and to the youth and to the adults even, that nobody can explain to me why do we have to do this. So I'm not sure if it is really to be done or not. So if we are going to teach them, and educate them about the deen, we need to fundamentally teach them, number one. And if there are teachers here who teach Islamic education, I would please ask them to focus on what I'm saying. It's very important. Every Islamic teacher who is going to teach them any kind of deen, except memorizing the Quran, of course, and the fiqh and the tajweed and those, I'm not talking about that part. But anybody is going to teach them about what is deen all about, has to start with, why do we need a deen in the first place? It's a fundamental question. Why does anybody need a deen? Whatever deen you follow, there's always don't, help, haven't, don't. Am I right? It's a pain in the butt. You're always worrying about going to hell. When are you going to be punished? When is going to be Allah unhappy with you? For as long as even little children don't understand, why do we need a deen?
It's a guidance.
Let's not talk about in a way that won't make sense to them. We need to talk their language. I'm just going to tell you why we need the deen. I'm not going to go into detail of how to teach Islam, but I'm just making a point. You can explain this to the kids and they would understand. If you ask somebody, how do you go about making a decision and know if it's right or wrong? We all go about making decisions. How do you go about making a decision and know if it is the right one or the wrong one? Where do you go to find that out? And now the kids are going to talk back to us. Says, well, my friends do it. Or so and so does it. Or this makes sense to me. Or I thought so and so, etc. It is from there on that you teach them that nobody can really teach you what is right and wrong, because right and wrong varies from person to person to person to person. Am I right? And if right and wrong varies from person to person to person to person, then ultimately is there anything right at all?
They're different.
Right? If there's anything wrong, then who says it is? This is why we need a deen. Because then we go to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who created us. Only Him can tell us what would be good or bad for us. What will be right or wrong for us. And that will be absolute right and absolute wrong for every human being. That would make sense to them.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying? This is how you teach Islam to kids now, and adults as well. And I truly pray that scholars of Islam, teachers of the Islamic studies, redo their syllabus and also come up with better ways of teaching Islam where they can actually teach the kids the wisdom of the deen of Islam. The wisdom behind every dictate of Islam. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not given all these rules to us to make our life miserable. Just to give us a hard time. In every command, there is some wisdom behind it. Many we can understand, some we may not. But if you start with those that we can understand, that they can buy, then they would automatically be open to accepting the rest of it. So we need to educate them in a way that it would make sense to them. Number 3, teaching them the value of good morals and good character. Teaching them manners, etiquettes and adab of everything in life. The deen and the teaching of the deen must start with adab. If we don't respect what we believe, if we don't respect people around us, if we don't respect ourselves, then we go around the world living our life like wild animals. And wallahi lazim, I don't have to give you examples of this. You see them in every school, in every masjid, and everywhere outside. Am I right? I still need to find a masjid where adults and children would come and show the true adab of the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. People are talking aloud, kids are running around, there's no discipline, there's no adab. If you ask a kid as an elder person, please don't do it, he just looks at you, who are you? And just keeps doing it. That's our problem. We don't teach them adab. And we cannot teach them adab if we don't practice that adab. Like I did a whole talk a couple of weeks ago at Al Rashid Masjid about the adab of the masjid. If you cannot respect the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and know that you are a guest here and that you will be held accountable for how you behave here. And if you don't teach this to your kids, you will not benefit from, he will not benefit from coming to the masjid. So it is very important that we not only teach them, but we teach them in a way that they can understand. For example, like I just talked about, the adab of the masjid. The adab, the respect of the elders. The adab of when you are talking to an elder, how do you talk to him? And why do we have to do this? We need to teach them, and this is what good character comes from. When we say to a child, don't lie, don't cheat, or anything else, you will have to explain to them why not lie, because lying helps you a lot getting out of all the consequences. Am I right? The whole world, adult, young, old, politicians, everybody's lying. Am I right or wrong about this?
Right.
This entire fake news world is lying. It serves a purpose. And then we are teaching the kids, don't lie. And they say, which world do you live in? So we need to teach them exactly what is lying all about and why is it bad. If they don't understand what it is that we are teaching them and what is the wisdom behind it, they would not follow it. Next point. Disciplining them to bring stability, firmness, and balance in their life. Now, this disciplining is a topic of its own. If we continue to do this series of tarbiyah, then one of these could be on discipline. Often, parents discipline their kids by imposing punishments, or taking away their things, or rewarding by something, threatening them, etc., etc., etc. The purpose of the disciplining is what? Anybody has any idea?
To correct certain behavior.
To correct the behavior. What else? We all need to be disciplining ourselves as well and our kids. But what is the purpose of disciplining?
To create a better me.
To create a better me, okay. Anybody else?
To achieve goals in the right way.
Yes, brother.
If you don't respect, you don't get respected.
Disciplining provides a structure to life. Disciplining provides a structure to life. If I give you an idea of what I mean by that, disciplining means you sleep at a certain time, you wake up at a certain time, you do go to school at a certain time. It teaches you the value of the time. And it teaches you how to make the best use of that time. This will not come without discipline. These days we have a major problem with kids not going to bed on time. Especially teenagers. They say, well, I'm a night person. I'm not the day person. What the heck that means? Only bats are night people, creatures, not humans. Allah has created humans to be able to rest. If you say that I'm not a human, I'm a bat. I only wake up at night and I sleep in the daytime. Or lots of young people these days say, I'm not a breakfast person. I don't eat breakfast. Where do you get your energy from? This is what discipline is all about. I'm going to say one more thing about disciplining. Disciplining that is imposed from outside would never last. Because if you're not there, they're going to go back to doing what they're doing. True discipline comes when disciplining is internalized, when they see the value of what you're teaching them to do or not do. And they begin to say, no, I got to go to bed at such certain time so I can wake up for the Fajr prayer, so I can go wake up for the school, so I have time to eat the breakfast. They know the value of it, and then it becomes part of them. If disciplining does not become part of them, it will never stay. Next point. Helping them actualize their given potentials. We are missing it big time. Most of the parents get focused on either one thing or the other. It's interesting, many years ago, I was doing a workshop for the families in New York somewhere. It was in Boston, New York, somewhere. I don't remember. And most of the families, most of the people were very highly educated people. And there were lots of children. And I asked the children to stand up for a minute, and there were a whole bunch that stood up. And I asked them, what would you like to be when you grow up? A doctor. What would you like to be? A doctor. What would you like to grow up? And I, doctor. An engineer. I said, who's going to drive the buses? Who's going to do all the other things if you can all become doctors and engineers? And are you going to make it? Because everybody is not cut out to be doctor and engineer, am I right? Allah has created us with different abilities and weaknesses. What I mean by here is that a parent, please think about it very focused. A parent has to be smart enough to know and learn and find out what are the special strengths of my kids. What are the special interests of my kids? What is he good at? What he doesn't like, or she? And then you provide him with the opportunities to make the best of his interests and his abilities, rather than live your dreams through them. Among these dreams is religious studies, for example. I deal very often with cases where these days, in some communities, getting their children to become Huffaz is a very common thing. Everybody wants their kids to be Hafiz. Some communities are very big in that. And some communities are big on making them becoming alim. Well, what if the kid does not have the ability to? What if the kid is not interested in it? What if his retention is not very good? Would you still want to keep pushing him? I can give you a number of examples where a youth, this case specifically was in his early teens, 13, 14. He was neither going good in his school, nor was he going to do good in his Hifz program. So they brought him to me and says, he has no interest. He says, just shows no interest in anything. Found out that the parents were very keen on the kid becoming an Hafiz. The father was an Hafiz, mashallah. And the boy was trying resentfully. He really did not want to do it. He was finding it difficult to do it. He was 12 or 13 years of age and he had done just a few juz. And he was not retaining it. And he was getting so mad about it that he was not putting his attention on his academic work either. So he just basically said, I can't do it. Once a child gets into this attitude of I can't do it, he would tend to stop doing anything. We need to understand that. You should never push a kid to do what he or she cannot do, finds it difficult to do, or does not show any interest in doing. We should not keep pushing him to do it. And say, if you just don't be lazy, you'll be okay. If you just sit down and practice a lot, you'll be okay. It's not just lazy. It's the abilities and all kinds of other factors that the person has or may not have. So a smart father, a smart mother, since the child is born, keeps focusing on what is he good at? What is she good at? And provides them the opportunity to actualize these skills and make the best of what they have. I'm going to share with you a recent case I'm dealing with. This person is no longer a child, but she was a child. She's now an adult. She never finished high school. And she's very depressed, isolated herself completely. She will not go out. She thinks there is no value to her life, that she is the worthless human being, unlikable human being. Nobody wants to be friends with me, those attitudes. SubhanAllah. I said to her, look, you told me all kinds of stuff about everything bad about you. And I appreciate and I understand how you have come to feel like this. I mean, you were not born like this, obviously. But how did you become like this? But anyways, I said, let's not go there for a minute. I don't want to talk about how you became like this or what happened to you. What I want to talk about is, tell me, do you see anything good about yourself? Are you good at anything? She said, honestly, I don't think I'm good at anything. I said, that's not possible. Because that will be unfair of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Am I right? If you don't have anything good about you, then Allah is unfair. Allah is unjust. I said, think again. It's only, okay, I'm only good at drawing. I said, that's the beginning. What do you draw? She said she draws these cartoon characters. You guys have seen Disney movies, am I right? Disney cartoon movies. You know these, all these characters on Disney cartoon movies are all drawings actually. Am I right? That's what she drew. And I said to her, do you have one of your drawings handy that you can show me? She says, they're quite big. I said, how big? She says, they're quite sizable big. I said, all right. Can you send me a picture of it? She said, hang on. From my computer, I'm going to send you a picture of it. She sent me a picture of these cartoon characters from one of the very famous Disney movies. I don't remember the name of these movies. I could not believe my eyes. The quality of that work is professional. Wallahi al-Azim, if she was in Hollywood and started working for Disney Studios, she would make thousands of dollars. That quality good. I said, you see you don't have any value? He said, well, so what? I said, this is your problem. You're ungrateful. You're ungrateful and do not acknowledge the good things about you. That's bad. I said, you think about it. She said, you know what, I'm on AISH. You know what AISH is? AISH is a government program that provides funds to people who just are no good for anything. They can't work.
Assisted income for severely handicapped.
She's on AISH. She said, but I do some work on the side with my art. I said, what kind of work? She said, I post this and then people send me orders to create this cartoon or this picture, whatever not. And I do it for them. I says, that's wonderful. That means you have a source of making money on it. I said, what was the one that you last made? She said, this was an order from New York. It took me 1 year to make it. 1 year? Yeah. You finished it? Yes. What did you get paid for it? $3,000 US. And this poor girl thinks that she's worth nothing. I said, I need to talk to your parents. The second session I had with her and her mother. And I asked her mother, would you tell me your thoughts about what's wrong with your daughter? Like, what's your... Oh, she said, oh, she is majorly sick. She has all kinds of problems. She has ADHD, she has ADD, she is obsessive compulsive, she is this, she is that, she is that. I said, that I can see why she became like this. I'm trying to make a point here, guys.
Yes.
I could see why she became like this. Because her own parents never showed any value to her. That's what I'm saying. Look for and understand. Search for, observe your kids to see where their strengths are. Yes, we all have weaknesses. Don't focus on the weaknesses like we usually do. Change the focus from weaknesses to their strengths. And if you allow them to actualize their potentials, their strengths will help them overcome their weaknesses. And we must do it. Okay. Stop me anytime if you have any questions. Okay. Directing their natural instincts towards the right path. So, we all have anger. We all get hurt. We all have different kinds of feelings. We all have some instinctual needs. Direct those things towards the right path. Anger is okay. But what would make sense, who you should direct that anger towards? Getting hurt is human. But what is the best way to deal with this hurt that you really don't hurt a lot? What I'm saying is not easy to do. Parents need to learn to do this. And no parents was taught these things, am I right? And that's where we have the problem. And then training them to justly fulfill their individual, family, community, and civil responsibilities that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed on them. Allah has placed upon them all kinds of obligations, am I right? Those obligations are towards our parents, our children, our family members, our friends, our community, nation, animals, am I right? Teach them to fulfill those things in a fair and just way. All those obligations must be met. If you are going to be a member of a community, if you are going to live in Canada, which we all have decided to live in, we are not going anywhere. What is your responsibility that you need to fulfill in this country as a Canadian as a Canadian Muslim, what will be your responsibilities and obligations? Teach them. We also fail in that regard. We don't teach them. The only responsibility that we teach is you go to school, make good grades. Go to school, make good grades, get good job, become something. That's our priority. But there's a lot more than that. These days it has become a very crucial point, boys and guys, because we live in an environment which is not friendly to us, to our deen and our faith, am I right? It's globally true. And yet we have to live and survive in this environment. Are we preparing our children to do it? Or are we staying at home and bad-mouthing the people and says, these are all kafirin, these are all enemies of Islam, we should stay away from them, they would do no good to us, never make any friends with them. How are we going to live in this society? How are you going to do it? Where would you find in the world to go to be able to do this anymore? We need to teach them how to survive in the environment, in the worldly environment that we live in, and what are our obligations. These are all large topics. I'm just giving you headlines of what we need to do as parents. And carrying out these responsibilities with love, kindness, and firmness. The other day, one of the patients that I was seeing asked me, I go to college and there's a guy, I have a friend, and he has a cross hanging in his neck. Is it jaiz, is it haram or halal for me to sit with him? Subhanallah. You see the obsessions we put these kids in? This is obsession to me. This is obsessively feeling threatened. You are going to be dealing with these kids if you go to school, like these kids are going to ultimately go to colleges and public schools. And they're going to meet people there who are not going to be the same people they're working here. Are they prepared to deal with them then? Or would they be worried, or would the parents be worried, they're going to do Islam, protect them, just go to school, come back, don't talk to anybody, don't make friends with anybody, they're all bad people. I told this guy, I said, look, has not Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Prophet taught us in the Quran to be kind and fair to everyone? Am I right or wrong with this? Even to our enemies, am I right? Kind and fair. You don't need to be friends with them, but you need to be kind. And you need to be caring. Even if this person is your enemy, if he falls down on his face, you are obligated to help him get up. Am I right or wrong about this? If he is wearing a cross, it's none of your business. If our sisters go to colleges and universities wearing this hijab, it is nobody's problem. Am I right? It is our faith. The other people's faith is their faith. Their beliefs are their belief. Whatever that belief may be, it doesn't matter. And these days with this LGBTQ thing, people are going mad. Parents, like, how do we deal with this? And I'm saying, there's nothing for you to deal with this. Don't make too big of it. You need to teach your children what is normal, what is not, and why. What is normal, what is not normal, and why. And then you teach them, everybody has the right to be what they want to be, it's none of your business. Right or wrong? Like in my profession, I deal with all kinds of them. But we need to teach them this, because if they are going to survive here, we need to teach them this. All right, let's go on. So, the parents' responsibilities and how would they actually guide their kids will keep changing. A child who's just born, until he or she is age 10 or 5, you will be guiding them in a very different way, am I right? But the same child, when he goes into 11, 12, 14, 15 years of age, you will have to change your way now. You cannot be treating him or her the same way as if he was still 8 or 6 or 7 or 5. Does that make sense? Which we fail big time as well. We just keep treating the child even when they become adult and married in the same way like they were kids. You know, like I was talking to a father who is giving a hard time to his 38-year-old married son. And I said, you know, brother, he's an adult. Have you not taught them right from wrong? He says, yeah. I said, so just leave him alone. But he's my son. And he's always going to be my child. I said, you know, you're making his and his wife's life miserable. Please back off. We need to understand what do we need to do? What does the child's need is at any stage of development? So when a child is from age to 10, 0 to 10, their main need and what we need to do is nurture them, protect them, teach them by actually doing things with them, and disciplining their behavior and role modeling. When the child is at that age between 0 to 10, you would notice that the child between 0 and 10, that they generally try to copy their parents. Am I right? Or copy their older brothers and older sisters. Am I right? This is the time to teach them proper ways of doing things by actually modeling it. If at that time you failed to model what you're teaching them, that's not going to work. Because at that age, that's what they need. Now, when they go into from age 11 to 14, they don't need this ongoing modeling and ongoing nurturing. They can take care of themselves. They can protect themselves, largely. They don't need to be disciplined, you know, and say, if you do this, you're going to be punished. And you don't need to do this anymore. You need them to guide and facilitate, because at age 12, as soon as the child becomes adolescent, there's a human need in them to become an adult. They want to be they don't want to be a child anymore. They want to be an adult. And there's a tendency to rebel, especially against the parents. They are now associating more with their friends rather than with family. Friends become more desired than parents. Some parents really panic at that time. Say, well, he used to be such a lovely child, he did all the kinds of things with us, now he doesn't want to do anything with us, he wants to do it with his friends. Well, don't panic, that's normal. That's perfectly okay. Now you need to guide his thinking. He needs guidance to think properly. Who to make friends with, how to choose the friends, and why. How would friends affect you and your ways of doing things by just being with them? What to take from them and what not to take from them. This is guiding and advising. That's what you do at that time. And then when they're 15, 18 and over, then you become their consultants. their advisors. You don't keep telling them what's right, what's wrong. You just discuss with them what they're doing in their life, and you ask them, how are you dealing with this? The core of all of this, at the root of you be able to do all of these things, requires a good child-parent relationship. Let me repeat this, and I'm going to keep repeating this. For you to raise your children to be responsible adults and be able to guide them, you have to have a very good, trusting relationship with them, where they can come to you for anything at all and not worry about being punished or upsetting the parents or any repercussions. A child should never be afraid of the parents to share with them anything. And that's where you would be most effective to the child. Many times, the kids lie to their parents, or they won't tell the whole truth. And when I would ask them, like, why do you lie about it? He said, if I tell them the truth, they're going to be upset. I'm going to get punished. They won't understand. They never understand anyway. They are always right and I'm always wrong. So why would I tell the truth? Kids should be able to, girls to the mothers and boys to the fathers and mothers. Anything they want to talk about, they come and know that I'm still going to be cared, loved, and taken care of. That also requires a lot of patience. Lots of patience and lots of understanding. So this is number one. This is what I call bonding with the child. Bonding with the child, it did not take place. You would not be effective in raising this kid and guiding him. In our communities, again, fathers fail big time in bonding with their kids. My observation from my practice. Fathers are busy working. And they see of it as their fundamental responsibility to provide for the family. Therefore, they have no bonding with their kids. And if there's an issue with the kids, they basically put it back on the mother. That's her responsibility. If there's a problem with the kids, the father would say to the mother, have you not taught your kids properly? What you're doing with the kids? Why is he behaving like this? Like this boy is not his child. It's just her child at that time. That's a very common problem in our community. And that happens because of this attitude, my role is to provide for. That's it. And my right is to be respected. Am I right? My role is to provide, and my right is to be respected and be obeyed. That attitude has to change. Number two, full commitment. You need to have full commitment to your family, to your marriage, to your children. Right now we have a problem that husbands and wives even don't have full commitment to themselves. This is why we have so many divorces. This is why we have so many marital problems. SubhanAllah, I probably mentioned it last time as well. The divorce rate is over 70% in Muslim communities. It is all over the world, not just here. And those who stay married, large number of them are miserable in their marriage. They're not happy. They're splitting up because of the kids. They're stuck. They keep making their lives miserable and they're stuck. And that's the majority of my work, my clinical work, dealing with these issues in the families. So there has to be a full commitment. Full commitment meaning what? fathers, please listen to it carefully. First, because Allah has made us primarily accountable and responsible for our families. Am I right? That's what we read in the hadith. We are primarily responsible as a head of the family to make sure that we stay and we make our wives and our children feel, I'm going to be here with you in all the thicks and thins of life. You never have to worry about it. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to be here. Regardless. You can always count on me. That's full commitment. You don't say every time there's a problem, what the hell did I get into? Why did I marry this woman? Why did I end up with this child? I'm ready to go. That's not a commitment. When you say, like even in the Christian faith, you say, till the death do us apart. Am I right? One of their vows. They don't say it anymore, by the way, because they know they can't keep it. They cannot keep it, they already know. So they won't say it anymore. But this is expected of us anyways. It's a bond. And of course, the bond can be broken under certain circumstances, but commitment has to be there first. Very important. And correct knowledge of the deen and the beliefs, like I mentioned before. Correct knowledge of the deens and our beliefs. If you as fathers and mothers don't have the proper knowledge of the deen and what you believe, how would you teach your kids? Next point is keeping things simple. Not making things too complicated. Brothers and sisters, I say without any reservation, life has some complications, but generally life is simple until we make it complicated. While I was going to university, one of my professors used to tell me, I was becoming a psychologist, and say, people don't like simple answers. If you give them simple answers that even make sense, they'll say, can't be that simple. Simplicity does not attract us. Simplicity makes us think that we are missing something. But life is simple. Keep it at that stage until things can become complicated. Now, how do things become complicated? Things become complicated when we don't deal with it in the simple form. When a simple thing occurs and you don't deal with it, then it sits. Then you put something else on it, and that sits. And then something else happens, and that sits. And now things become complicated. If you deal with things as they happen, they always remain simple. If you teach your kids in very simple ways, one step at a time, don't make things complicated. For example, mothers, when you are teaching your kids, I don't know if you teach your kids, your daughters, for example, how to look after household things, how to look after kitchen, how to look after these things that they would end up doing, being married. Well, most of the girls don't believe they have to do it anyways now. That's another problem. They believe that this is not my responsibility. My husband has to hire a servant for me to do this. Not my responsibility. That's another problem, right? But if you're teaching your daughter, for example, how to do the dishes, or that she should be coming in to help you when you're cooking, or cleaning the dishes or cleaning, how would you go about it? Would make it either fun for the child to learn or a major headache for the child to learn. I'm going to give you an example. So, you ate your meal, there's dishes in the sink, and you say to your daughter, dishes is your responsibility, and she goes and she says, why do I have to do this, number one? And finally, if she agrees to do it, she just cleans it, and then the mother goes at it, this is still greasy, how are you doing it? You don't even know how to do dishes? But did you ever teach him how to do dishes properly? Or did you expect that she should just know it? If you want the child to learn to do something in a specific, the right way, the better way, then you need to teach them by example. Don't just expect them to know. This is simplicity. Next point, consistency and transparency. Things should be transparent. There should be no ulterior motives. There should be nothing hidden. Everything should be open and should be consistent. If you do a certain thing a certain time and day and then stop doing it, not gonna work. And last, but not least, like I mentioned in the previous slide, understanding their developmental needs. What are their developmental needs? Any developmental phase, and changing your style to guide them appropriately. One thing that I often find working with the families is that when I ask the mother or the father, why do you raise your kids like this? He says, because that's how I was raised. That's what my mother did. That's what my father did. I said, now how many years ago was that? 40 years ago? 50 years ago? 30 years ago? Do you know the world has changed? Do you know kids are not like this and like you were? You need to change with times. You can't say that's what my... That reminds me of a case that I always mention. This guy was basically beating up his kids. And every time he got angry, he would just give them corporal punishment. And sometime either the school or somebody reported him to the authorities. And they said he needs to get anger management therapy, right? So the case was referred to me. He said, in Islam, are we not allowed to punish kids? They always bring Islam first about this part. Beating their wives or kids, no problem. Islam is there for me. Quran is there for me. Are we not allowed to punish our kids when we need to? I said, okay, then what? He said, well, these people don't understand our culture and our faith. Look at me, he says. I was punished by my father the way that I'm not doing half with my kid. Look, I have turned out. And I said, I can see how you turned out. Absolutely, I can see how you turned out. We need to change that. Age-appropriate guidance and discipline is very important. If you have any expectations of your kids, it should be very concrete. Don't just give them a word or a phrase that could mean all kinds of different things. Right? Simple example. Your teenage girl or your teenage son goes out, he's now 15, 16, he goes out and you say, be on time. What does that mean?
What's the time?
What time?
Give a number.
Whose time? I want you to be responsible and come home at a good time. What's a good time, Dad? You have to be very clear in your expectations. My dear son, it is your responsibility to get the garbage out, to throw the garbage out. Okay, Dad. Did you take the garbage out? I'll do it. I know it's my responsibility. Where would you do it? Well, you never told me that I have to do it a certain time. You got to tell me a certain time. You have to empty the garbage at the end of the day, son, every day before you go to bed. Be clear in your expectations. And practice what you preach. And I also mentioned open communication. And that would only come if you have a trust relationship with your kids. Otherwise, you will never be able to. And that is not with the kids. Even more important with your wives. If you don't have a trusting relationship with your wives, your communication will not be open. And that would cause a lot of distrust between the husbands and the wives. Patience, tolerance, and compassion. Change does not occur overnight. Change is a process. You have to be patient with them. You have to know that the child is only capable of doing only so much today, or this much. If you overburden him, he's going to feel anxious. He's going to feel that he's no good. He can't do it. Why would you want to do this? Don't do it even to yourself. Some people take on too many things on their shoulders and they're always walking hunched around because of stress. How many things I have to do? Only put on your plate as much as you can do, and do it a good way. Do the same thing with the kids. And when they fail, and they're going to fail like we do, be kind and compassionate. Forgive. Kids are going to make mistakes. Who doesn't? Which of the adult who's sitting here who says, I don't make any mistakes? We all do. So don't expect the kids not to make the mistakes. Don't say, how many times do I have to tell you not to do this? You should ask yourself, how many times you know that you should not do it and you do it? We're going to all falter. So what? That's human. That's human. And very importantly, good marital relationship. In a family where the mother and the father, the husband and wife are not getting along, they will never ever raise good kids. I guarantee you that. Lots of couples stay with each other, they're miserable with each other, but they stick it out for the kids. And I'm saying, are you raising good kids? The kids will grow up with certain attitudes that they see in their parents. These days, how many girls who go through these, come out of those kinds of families, say, I never want to get married. I don't trust men. And subhanAllah, this is so painful for me sometimes. When a husband treats his wife in an insulting, unkind, harsh way, he teaches his kids to treat the mother the same way. I still remember this case, and I mention it every time I do this. I mention this case. I was helping a sister who was going through this abusive relationship. Her husband would call her all kinds of names, swear at her, in front of the kids, etc., etc., etc. And this was going on for God only knows how long. She said, Dr. Sadiq, what pains me the most, even besides how my husband treats me, is that my 11-year-old son treats me in the same way. If you don't show respect to your spouses, you teach your kids, don't show respect to their parents. And then you put them in a position of taking sides. Please don't do that. Before you can raise good kids and implement all these things that I'm talking about, work on the marital relationship. Solve the issues that you have in your marriage. Don't shy away. And please, please don't say, it's her problem. She makes me do this. Or it's his problem. He makes me behave like this. Don't do that. If there is a problem in a relationship, please know that 100% of the time, two people are contributing to the problem. You can't have a problem one person. Am I right? Some more or some less. Be adult enough, mature enough to accept your contribution to the problem. One of the problems that I face in my work as a therapist, as a counselor, is when I find it difficult for people to take responsibility for their contribution. And they say it's all with this person's problem. And how I find out about this is right from the very first session. In the very first session, when for 1.5 hours, the two people are cursing at each other and they're bring up all kinds of issues with each other, they're never on the same page about what the problem is. Never ever on the same page. It was interesting in one time when one couple, when they went through all these lists of problems to each other, and the husband has the biggest list about how his wife is making his life difficult. And I said to him, brother, could you tell me at least one thing that you're doing wrong? He says, yes. Alhamdulillah, tell me that one thing. I made a mistake marrying her. So, for men especially, it's very difficult, especially in our community. It's not that bad in white communities. In our communities, it's very difficult for the men to say, I have a problem too. We never have a problem. So please don't do that. Work on the marital relationship, and please know that if you are not able to solve it, seek help. There's nothing wrong with it. When you have any other kinds of problems, you go to the expert to get help. Is that right? There's no shame in having these problems. We are all humans. We are all in the same boat. We may just be shoving our problems under the rug and not talking about it. That doesn't mean we don't have them. There's no shame in seeking help. Actually, there's wisdom in seeking help. Even at the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, did men and women come to him with their marital problems or not? With their family problems or not?
Yes.
Was there any sense of shame? No. Why do we have this now? It's our culture. So please seek help. There has to be consistent understanding and applications of the values between parents and optimism. In other words, if the mother and the father have different set of values with which they make decisions, there's always going to be conflict between them. When they are conflicted between themselves, between the two of them, what message would they give to the child? We are going to give them two different messages. Right? I probably gave this example last time, I don't remember, but I'm going to give you this example. One time I was dealing with this young couple. They had just one child, and he was about maybe 3 years old, something like this. And the father worked all day long, and when he came home, he would just eat his supper and stretch his leg out on the sofa, watch the TV, open up a can of Coke, and drink and give the sips to the son. And it drove his wife crazy. Because his wife, the value was no sugar to the kids. None of those drinks to the kids. And it was so bad that they had to come for help. And I said to the couple, I said, so exactly this is the main problem? She says, this is one of them, she says. He doesn't believe in healthy food. I do. This is the value difference. It's a core value difference. You see what I'm saying? It's a core value difference. What kind of food will be ate at home? What is healthy, what is not healthy? What is junk, what is not junk? It's a major issue these days. So I said to the mother, I said, so I understand that your belief is that kids should be given healthy food, not lots of sugar, so that they later don't develop diabetes and other kinds of issues with their teeth, etc. She says, yes, don't you agree with me? I said, I absolutely do. And I said to the father, I says, and your belief is? He says, my belief is that we should not overdo everything. The kids enjoy drink, give them some, no problem. You don't have to overdo it. But you don't have to ever say you never are going to have a soda. Because you're going to make him feel deprived. All his friends are going to have sodas outside, am I right or wrong? So I said, "No, but we can't come up with a balance." These are core value differences. You need to have values that you agree on. And if you have difference in values, then seek help. Find out as to how to find a balance. Optimism. Always remain optimism. Things can always change. Because that's what Allah said in the Quran. Things don't remain the same. Hardship comes, and after hardship is ease. And then hardship is going to be again. Then ease is going to be again. Always remain optimistic. Always believe that my wife, my husband, my son, my daughter can change. Only if they want to, if they're ready to. Sometimes we make this big mistake, and husband and wives and kids will make these statements towards each other. My husband will never change. My father will never change. Whatever you do, he was never going to change. And I say that's a very tough situation to put yourself in, because now you lose hope. And when you lose hope, you feel stuck. You give up. Don't ever do it. And last but not least, be ready to sacrifice. Things are not always going to go your way. We are not going to get everything that we want. That's what Allah says in the Quran. Does a person think he's going to get everything he wants? Not possible. So don't expect things to go your way. Expect to give up something. Says, it's okay if I don't have it. Right now I want to go to my game. Right now I want to go to my shop, whatever not. But right now also, my son needs to go here. And my wife needs to go here. Maybe I should just not do this today and help my wife and my son. That's what sacrifice is all about. And we need to be ready to do this. If you're not ready to sacrifice, then we are never going to be happy and keep other people happy. And the last thing I want to talk about before I stop and get you to ask questions is that because this is in school, I said this last time, I'm going to say it again. If parents and the teachers are not on the same page, all your efforts that you do here are going to go down the drain. Which is why I suggested that Islamic schools don't just have the responsibility to provide tarbiyah to the kids, but to the parents as well. And if you don't bring the parents on board, they are going to undo what you're doing at home. Extremely important. A teacher is a surrogate mother or a surrogate father. If you're a teacher, don't ever take your job as, that's my job, I need to finish these books. Give the exam and mark them and I'm done for 2 months for holidays. Don't have this attitude. If you were in a public school, different. But you're in Islamic school. And Islamic school's responsibility is not to provide education, but also tarbiyah. If that tarbiyah is not provided, you're going to fail. Your kids are going to fail. So teachers and students and the parents need to be all on the same page. What does that mean in practice? See, right now, for example, when I'm talking about these things, there are parents and hopefully there are some teachers. And they're all listening to the same thing. When you do a seminar on how to discipline kids, both the teachers and the parents should be there. So they're getting consistent message and using the consistent methods to discipline. It puts an additional burden of responsibility on the parents, but it needs to be done. And that's where I'm going to stop. We have about 12 minutes before Isha time. Please feel free to ask any questions. And one condition, don't make long statements. Just ask a short question so I can give you an appropriate answer.
Okay, one question. So there's the balance between this one, the kids, and building trust between the parents and the kids. This is sounds very difficult to maintain the balance. Like to have the child come and talk to you and tell you everything, and at the same time he's not afraid to say that. This is like it requires a balance. Like, will you provide some discipline at certain level where they can come and talk and not afraid? I think it's a little bit of.
You know what? If I understand you correctly, let me say what
Yeah.
I heard you say, and correct me if I didn't get
Rephrase
you.
it.
What you said is, we should have this trusting relationship that the kids can come and talk to us about everything and not fear any consequence.
Yes.
But at the same time, if he's doing something wrong, should we not discipline him?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. By listening to him, you're already beginning to discipline him. We are telling him, you can talk about everything, it's okay to talk about it. Now, how can I help?
That's a situational thing, like at the time. But like, what makes a child come to his father, talk about something happened to him, like not afraid to say that or something he did, without fear of any consequences. Especially if you like they make a big mistake.
So, give me an example of the big mistake. Then I can be more concrete.
Like talk something, he stole something. Let's say he took something from somebody else. He steals something and he knows it's wrong.
He stole something.
Yeah.
That's a good example.
Yeah.
So he stole something.
Yeah.
And obviously he would not, at that time, he would not come and talk to you. You were going to find out from somebody else. Am I right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is naturally and normally what happens. So he stole something, he got caught.
Not only cause sometimes he admit, but he want to say that, but he can't. He's just afraid.
You know, he would admit only if he's going to get caught. He's not going to say, Dad, guess what? I just went to the store and I stole this thing. He's not going to do that. Dad, I was in my classroom and I just went to somebody else's backpack and I just stole that camera.
Mostly it's not actual stealing, like find something and maybe for somebody, talk it, because it looks appealing, and then he regret it.
That's okay, but there are two possibilities. Number one, he regrets it and he talks to you about it. And this has just happened in one of the cases. This child brought a cell phone from school. And now, obviously this child did not have a cell phone. So if he was going to use it, he was going to show it in the home that he has a cell phone. So he or she went to the older sibling and says, I took a cell phone out of my friend's backpack. The situation I was talking about. What should I do? The sister, being a very mature older sister, she says, what do you think you should do? See, this is the disciplining part. You make them think, because remember I told you, discipline has to be internalized, not exposed from outside. Internalized. So she asked, what do you think you should do? She said, I don't know. Says, what if somebody stole your phone? What would you do? Say, I would want him to return it to me. I says, so what you should do? You see what's happening? You are teaching them without punishing them. Or without, why the heck did you do this? That's wrong, don't you understand? That's what I'm trying to avoid. We need to discipline, but we need to discipline with hikmah.
They will come again after the other.
Right? With wisdom, so that they can understand why did they do something that was wrong.
So we start those with any minor mistakes. And
Yeah.
go on. Yeah.
Remember, every behavior that anybody portrays serves a purpose. You need to understand if a child is lying, what is he lying for? What is he getting out of this behavior? Until you understand the purpose of the behavior, you cannot properly discipline the child. Now, there are very different situations about disciplining. especially in a school situation, home situation, that needs some urgent action as well. But that we need to talk about in a separate talk. Any other questions? Yes, brother.
With our kids here in Islamic schools, spending most of their days here, they are in a very protected environment, and the real world is not like that. So
Yep.
this recently was occurring to me that perhaps they're not being prepared to go and talk to the non-religious crowd that's out there. How would you advise to deal with that, considering they spend their entire lives up till a certain time?
Yeah. That is a very important question and difficult question. So it depends upon the size and the scope of the school. So take for example this school. It's a very small school and very small scope of the school, am I right? Compared with EIA, EIA is a huge organization. Am I right? And a huge and a program and multi-million-dollar programs. Right. They can afford to provide opportunities for their kids to be playing sports with other schools, to be doing other things for the schools, bring other schools there and going. They can do this. But with this school, it's very small scope. For kids in this school, parents would have to take that responsibility outside of the school. There's no other option. One of my problem with Islamic school is that Islamic schools sometimes become overly protective. And they teach the kids things that almost scares them from outside, which Islamic school should never do. They should not scare the kids from what's outside. They should talk to them about what's outside and tell them it's going to be there and this is how you deal with it. Also in Islamic school there are problems. There are kids mistreating each other. Am I right? The kids mistreating each other. They are bullying each other. It happens in Islamic schools, small and big. So I hear kids say, I'm in Islamic school, but I don't have any friends because they make fun of me and they bully me. Why does that go on? Where are the teachers? Why don't they see this? Why don't they discipline? Teachers, please remember, if a child has anger problem, behavior problem in classroom, it's your problem. You need to deal with it. You don't say to the kids, your kid has an anger problem, do something about it. In a classroom, it becomes your problem. You need to deal with this. If a child in your school is bullying some other kid, you don't just complain it to their parents. You have to find a way to deal with the situation in the school. That's what therapy is all about. Make sense? Any other questions? We have 3 more minutes. Anybody else? Should we wrap it up? Was it helpful?
Very good.
Okay. Next time, next topic, inshallah, al-Aziz. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى سيدنا محمد وآله وأصحابه وسلم. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. وقنا عذاب القبر وقنا عذاب الحشر وقنا عذاب الميزان. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. اللهم حبب إلينا الإيمان وزينه في قلوبنا وكره إلينا الكفر والفسوق والعصيان واجعلنا من الراشدين. اللهم توفنا مسلمين والحقنا بصالحين غير خزايا والمفتونين. ربنا اغفر لي ولوالدي رب ارحمهما كما ربياني صغيرا. اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات الله يرحمهم والموت. صلى الله تعالى على خير خلقه محمد وعلى اله وصحبه اجمعين برحمتك يا ارحم الراحمين.